Listen to the vibes.
The views and opinions of our guests may not necessarily reflect those of the host or the Vibes Broadcast Network. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. And I'm very privileged to have Miss Angie Berrett here. She is I wrote it down so I get it right, intuitive movement coach. And so I find that really cool because it's original. I mean, I have different life coaches on and they have different titles for themselves, but never heard this one before. But we're going to learn about that. Before we get into it, tell us a little bit about yourself, Angie.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have kind of I understand similar history to you. I was abused as a child. I grew up in a very fundamental, I don't think this part necessarily is similar, but I grew up in a very fundamental Christian religion. And I was abused growing up by my clergy members at church without my parents' knowledge. And it went on for a number of years. And it was so traumatic for me, I did block out memories of it. So I didn't actually have memories of it until I became an adult. And as I grew up, I always just had what I called this black hole of pain inside of me. I hurt. I did not believe I had any value. I felt worthless. And because my abuse happened by clergy, I believed that God didn't love me, that I was just inherently this bad and wicked person, because my abusers did also tell me that God wanted what was happening to me to happen.
That's
it was very, very traumatic, obviously. And I grew up, and once again, growing up in a very fundamental religious household, I got married very young, and I got married to someone that I didn't know very well because premarital sex is not something that you do. So we had a very short engagement. I married a fairly abusive man, and I was actually very lucky, and I fully acknowledge that I had a position of privilege that others who grew up with abuse like I didn't have. I went to college and I became a registered nurse. And so I did have a degree, I did have an education. In fact, I supported myself and my husband. He didn't work for many years. So I was able to support us. And so I was able to have my own financial resources. And I worked as a nurse for many years. In fact, I still am a nurse. I love being a registered nurse. I've worked emergency department, I worked ICU, I've worked in education. So I've taught nursing, I've taught nurses how to be ER and ICU nurses. So I worked the high acuity, high adrenaline. I needed that rush of energy. And I still never could quite get rid of this black hole of pain, no matter how much I served people, no matter how much I sacrificed of myself. And I just instead felt like I was losing myself. I struggled with eating disorders. I have been anorexic for many years, although it is well controlled right now. I've gotten to the point of needing to be hospitalized more than once because my eating disorder has been so significant. And eventually divorced my husband, and still just kind of went through this evolutionary period, started therapy, started working, trying to figure out who I was. And about 7 years ago, 6.5, almost 7 years ago, I had a full mental breakdown. I found out that my partner was cheating on me. I found out through Facebook. They posted something publicly about their new relationship while we were together. So I clearly was picking a type. And around the same time, that actually triggered memories of my child abuse to come out. That betrayal by my partner opened up the wounds of my childhood. And so I started on this journey to heal from this horrible child abuse. Around that time, I got incredibly suicidal. I just felt like I could not handle what was happening. I started abusing alcohol. I was using alcohol, going to work. You do definitely not want your nurse to be intoxicated. And I found that I was having a hard time not drinking before I went to work. As soon as I went home, or as soon as I got home from work, I would crack open a bottle or multiple bottles. And I realized that I was putting people in harm's way. So I checked myself into an inpatient psychiatric hospital. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life.
Yes.
Yeah, it was. And I went to a PTSD unit, and it was amazing. It was wonderful. And it was painful and the hardest thing I've ever done. And I have since been on a journey to continue healing. And about 3.5 years ago, my body started doing these involuntary movements, just the only way I can describe it is this untwisting. It actually physically moves and untwists. And I've only met one other person who's ever experienced that, who's ever even heard of it. I saw multiple psychiatrists, my therapist hadn't heard of it, other than just my body was releasing this extreme trauma that I had experienced as a young child that I couldn't actually ever release. Our body stores trauma, and it was my body's way of releasing it. And I used to be a belly dancer. I belly danced for a while, belonged to a performing troupe. And some of these involuntary movements that were happening felt like some belly dance moves that I did. And so I decided to start trying to belly dance again. So I found an online teacher, started doing some online dancing. And it was really interesting. I was doing a class, and the way that belly dancing a lot of times works is you start with a very slow movement, learning how to tap into the muscles, and then you speed it up. And so like hip shakes or a shimmy, you start really slow, and then you speed it up to go faster. And as I was doing that, all of a sudden, as we were going faster and faster, my body just started to shake. And I just felt this overwhelming release of, can I swear on this podcast?
I'll let it slip.
I'll hold it in. I can come up with other words. I just felt this release of junk that had been stored inside of me for so long. And as soon as it was done, and I had no control over it. And when it was done, I was like, oh my gosh, what just happened? And so I started researching it, trying to figure out nervous systems and how it worked, and got really into how our bodies store trauma. And around the same time, I'm also a yoga instructor, so I teach yoga. And around the same time, I was taking a certification to become a trauma-informed yoga instructor. And one of the things that we talked about in my program is how beneficial play is in helping people release this stored trauma in their bodies. And so I started taking belly dancing, which was play for me. It was fun. It was just this enjoyable chance to let my body do whatever it wanted, and combined it with a more scientific based approach to how to tap into my nervous system to release this the stored trauma inside of me. And as I started doing that, I realized that I was able to release this energy. I was telling my therapist about it, and she calls it the protest response. So when children are being hurt, when they're unable to do anything in response, so their bodies still want to. It doesn't, just because they can't doesn't mean that their bodies don't want to. And so this protest response is allowing your body to do what it would have done in that instance, but you couldn't. So a lot of times I would end up, as I was doing these movements, like punching or kicking, and it just was this overwhelming sense of relief and release from my body. So I thought, well, if this is so beneficial for me, let me try taking it out to some other people. So I told a couple of friends about it, and they wanted to try. And I realized that it worked the same for them. It was able to help, even though they hadn't experienced trauma like I had experienced, they still felt this release from their body. And so as it's evolved, the reason I call myself an intuitive movement coach is because I use play to help people learn what their bodies are trying to tell them. So using a game to put yourself into what it feels like when you go into fight or flight, or, your heart increases, your respiratory rate, your breathing increases, but doing it in a playful way allows people to feel like they have control. And then it also helps people realize what's happening in their bodies so that they can start to do something earlier before it gets to a full-blown panic attack, or before it gets to a full-blown depression shutdown mode. There are movements that people learn what works in their body, what activates them, what calms them down. And so I use play and movement to not only release what's happening in people's body or what has happened, the stored trauma, but also to learn how to tap into what is actually really going on, to kind of maybe take to intervene is the word I was trying to come up with, to intervene earlier before it gets to the point where you do need medication, or you do need whatever it is to help calm it down.
Yeah, I have those CRS moments all the time. Look, I almost had one there. To go back to what you were saying about the clergy, it's really sad that church is supposed to be a good thing. And there's a lot of wonderful people in the church. Yes. When I finally started going regular, the people were so supportive and everything, but you kind of notice that some of the people that are in charge, don't have to tell you, but they're narcissists. They use their position and their power to influence, or they try to use that to control you. Mm-hmm. And it's not representative of what church is supposed to be. It's really sad. I mean, I went to a fundamental Baptist church, and I actually was a preacher for about 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And, I had a falling out with my preacher and stepped away, and I lost my dad, I lost my little brother, I lost my best friend. Wow. And so I'm mad at God and blaming him when it's not his fault. He gave us free will, and unfortunately we abuse it. And that's all I got to say about that. It brings back some memories for sure.
The one thing I would like to say is, yes, absolutely. There is the narcissism. There are wonderful people in there who do genuinely try to live by the teachings of Christ. Mm-hmm. Churches are also a place where pedophiles do hide out. So if anybody's listening, just be extra aware, because especially fundamental religions do teach children to respect authority. There is an element of that it's actually pretty studied that pedophiles do oftentimes hide out in congregations because it can be easy to find children there. So my plea is just be aware, be cautious of your surroundings, and know what to look for really anywhere. I mean, it can happen at schools, it can happen anywhere. Yeah. So churches are not the exception. Right. That just was my particular experience.
Yeah, I was actually in charge of the children's church, and I had to watch the volunteers. I was fortunate we didn't have any incidents, but you do your senses are kind of heightened because you worry about these poor kids. But some of the things that you talked about is so parallel to my life. The substance abuse, and I hid it for a long time. And when you talked about your significant other cheating on you, I was in a relationship that I thought I was fixing to get married again. And the lady that I was with, she used, I guess she was kind of the one in charge, I guess, of the relationship, you'd say. And she used that to make me feel bad. Any little thing that I did, she would make it out like it was something traumatic, and really just tore me up. And then when she finally said, I don't want to have nothing to do with you anymore, that's when I had my attack.
Is that really?
Yeah. I ended up in a closet, just kind of curled up, and I was crying like a little kid, a little baby. Mm-hmm. And I mean, all of a sudden I'm hearing things in my head telling me to do bad things to myself. And,
yes,
I wasn't worth it. I just should end it all. And I went into the hospital myself, and that's when I finally got diagnosed. So yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from.
That betrayal by someone who's supposed to love you and care about you. I've talked to a lot of survivors, and a lot of times that's a catalyst for people who do have memories that are repressed, like it sounds like you've had and I had. That can be a catalyst to really bring those out, that sense of betrayal, because it is just devastating, and took me back to that small little child that felt worthless and like I had no value.
I think that's what held me back for so long is I didn't have any confidence. I felt lower than dirt. I didn't feel like I was worth it. You know, I got married when I was 19. I had 3 kids, and I shouldn't have got married, but you know, thank God I have my children. I love them to death, and but I didn't feel like I was worthy of love.
Mm-mm.
How did I even get married in the first place? I just didn't feel like I was worth it. And by the way, my youngest son, he's a nurse as well. So
Is he?
he's going for that degree where I don't know what the head nurse is, but you know, he's
The
doing that.
nurse practitioner?
I think that's what it's called. I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Yeah. That's awesome. Good for him. That's amazing.
So you noticed these movements and you got relief from it. So how do you, I mean, I'm gonna have to edit this part, but I had brain fart. How do you go about, you know, helping people to find those movements that they need to help relieve that?
Absolutely. So like I said, I've only ever met one other person who's ever had these involuntary movements. And I can somewhat control them. In fact, you probably won't even notice me doing them right now, although they still are very prevalent in my life. It's because I've learned how to release them enough prior to coming on this that I can hold them down. But when I work with people who don't have those, generally there's different ways that we go about doing it. One of the, it depends also on what a person wants. Not everybody wants to go full bore into their pain. They just want to have more of kind of a light, fun, playful experience and just kind of release it. Some people want to get really a little more deep into some of their negative self-beliefs. So a lot of times what I do is I have people tap into what the negative beliefs that they have are, what the negative beliefs they have about themselves are. So like for me, some of mine would be, I'm not worthy, I have no value, I'm worthless. And then we do movement and play around letting go of some of that energy with that. So it doesn't matter like where the belief came from. It doesn't matter why you believe that about yourself. It's, you know, as people tap into those feelings around whatever their negative beliefs are, it starts to create this buildup of energy. And then we'll use movements, or I guide them through movements. I do a lot of imitation of animals, just because that's something that really helps people step outside of the human experience, think of something different so that they don't have to experience the full emotions of being a human in something very uncomfortable. So for example, one of my favorite moves that I do with people, I call it octopus on roller skates. So it's pretend that you're an octopus. You have 8 arms, 8 legs, and every extremity is on a shoe with wheels, and you have no bones. So how would your body move? It's letting people kind of get into this like wiggly. And as they do that, yeah, so they laugh, it's fun. And as we do that, I'll have people work through like saying, so for me, mine is, I'm not worthy. I would then say, I am worthy. I do have value. And so it's releasing some of that energy around what that negative belief is through a fun and playful way. You know, as you're laughing because your body looks silly, because you're being all wiggly and wobbly, it shifts something inside. It taps into a different part of the nervous system that releases that buildup of energy. And so that's how I work with people typically.
Well, you know, I've come a long way in my journey, but I still have those moments that everything kind of rushes back, and I need I need a life coach, just like a life coach needs a life coach. If that
Yeah,
makes sense.
absolutely. Yeah.
I go through these interviews and I kind of relive all the stuff that happened to me without getting into full detail. It's still, you think about it,
Yeah.
but I'm going to continue to do it because there's somebody out there that can relate and I want to help them. But I'm also disabled. I didn't know if you knew that.
I did not.
I have a disease in my spine, so I can't really get too wild, but I can do something. I mean, they're still sit and be fit, right?
Well, part of also what I do is I teach people movements that help to settle their nervous system. So
Okay.
so yes, the release of energy, but then also movements that help settle. So when people are starting to feel that overwhelm, like starting to get those prickly, emotional, itchy feelings, there are movements that can be done. And one of my favorite ones, this one is so simple, is just a sway. So swaying either side to side or front to back. Some people front to back makes more anxiety. Front to back gives me more anxiety. Side to side feels more comfortable.
Okay.
But think of rocking a child. How do we calm children when they're fussy? We rock them, or yeah. And so our nervous systems are still the same. And so it doesn't have to be this big, like energetic release. You can even do it with your fingers if you don't want to move your whole body, like the roller skate octopus on roller skates. You can do
I
it
can
with
do that.
yeah, yeah. So it doesn't have to be big, and I tailor it depending on what a person wants and is able to do. But even simple movements like a side to side sway is soothing, it's calming. So movements that are repetitive and rhythmic actually help to settle the nervous system down. So there are things that can be done both to release as well as to help calm down after or before things get to that point.
Well, I could use that while I'm doing my meditation. That would be awesome.
I can't sit in meditation. My anxiety, I can't sit. I teach yoga and I can't sit in meditation.
I understand.
Right. And so for me, if I add a sway in when I'm meditating, my body instantly calms down. When I have to sit in stillness, that agitates me. And so meditation doesn't have to be still. In fact, that's one of the big things that I'm very passionate about is you can move. Meditation is designed to connect your mind and your body. And sometimes for some of us, having some sort of simple movement like a sway actually is a way that our nervous systems can settle down. And so it doesn't have to be stillness.
I wonder if that would help me with, I have nerve damage, and sometimes I get these weird tics and movements. It drives me nuts, especially when I'm ready to lay down and go to bed. I don't know if it's because of my spine where it's aligned, but I start getting these little jerks and everything. Oh my God, it drives me nuts.
I obviously don't know enough about your history. And one of the things that I've learned is for those of us who carry trauma in our bodies, tics and muscle twitches and these involuntary muscle movements can also be your body trying to release some stress, some anxiety, something that is built up that it's trying to get out or to let go. So it could be, I'm not obviously diagnosing you or
Right.
diagnosing you. I just know from personal experience that some of those muscle tics are really someone's body trying to release something or to have them be aware that, like kind of a flashing sign, like, hello, help, I need some attention, maybe settle me down. I worked with a client one time who every time she'd get ready for bed, she just started having to pace. Like she just started, like her fingers would clench. And so we worked to discover movements that would help her settle down before she went to bed. And she would do those and then she would sleep like a baby, something that she hadn't done in years. And it was because her nervous system was kind of giving her cues that something needed to be done. And when we found movements, and a sway side to side was one of the things that really worked for her to help settle her body down.
Yeah, I'm going through one doctor to another. Everything is like, I'm gonna take care of this problem first, then I'll get to this one. And the nerves, I probably should speed up that because it makes me itch. which is drives me nuts. And like I say, the ticks and everything. Sometimes it's very hard to get relaxed.
Mhm.
Oh, too many things, too many things.
For those of us who have experienced trauma, especially in childhood, it impacts our bodies in so many ways that we don't even realize.
Mhm.
Autoimmune disorders are common. So a lot of
Yeah.
GI disorders, thyroid disorders, our body starts to attack itself because we have to stuff so many things down. It does
Yeah.
also happen with adult abuse as well. So it's not specific to just children, but it really takes a toll on our bodies, and that manifests as we get older. So I can relate to that. I absolutely.
Oh yeah. And just about everybody I know that's gone through something similar, they usually have stomach problems and like you said, your body kind of attacks itself. At one point, I had a pain in my stomach that I went to 3 different doctors. They all did all these tests, couldn't figure out what was wrong. Eventually, it did go away, but it came back again for a while and then went away. And hopefully, it won't come back because it's awful. It is awful. It's like you've got a knife, you swallowed a knife and it's stuck in your gut.
Yes.
I feel really, really bad for especially those that went through worse trauma than I did, and the problems that they have health wise, mentally. Uh,
Mhm.
I'm kind of curious, and I have to stress we are not doctors, so you consult with your doctor before you
Yes.
do anything. I'm going to talk a little bit about stuff that's helped me. If it helps you, great, but I'm not telling you to do these things. I told you about I got into meditation and all
Yes.
that. It's helped me a lot, and I was able to get off the medications that I was on. I didn't feel like that they were helping me, and I did wean off of them a little bit at a time.
Mhm.
But the meditation has helped me so much to where I don't have to go pop a pill if I'm going to get into a crowd or anything like that. Do you
Mm.
do you think that your method would help people get off medication?
Um, yes. I think that it has absolute potential for that. It has helped me
Mhm.
get off. I'm not off all the medication yet, just because my involuntary movements are actually very painful.
Mm.
But it has significantly reduced my need to pop a pill when I go into a crowd. Um,
Mhm.
so I actually had some anxiety even coming on to do this podcast. Talking about my story can create some anxiety.
It definitely
And
does.
yeah. And so rather than take a pill, I did some of my playful movements. Like I released some of that energy, and that has helped me to be able to sit here and talk. Granted, you still see that I'm using my hands. I'm very much an active person.
I
And
know what you mean.
yeah, it's that system that's always
Just
going.
can't help it.
I can't, even if I sit on them somehow, like my shoulders will be moving. Um, and finding ways of using movement to release some of that energy absolutely has helped me and even some of my clients to be able to release that emotional itchiness, is what I call it, that angsty feeling
Mm.
that a lot of times medicine has been the only option for. So it has that potential, absolutely. Mhm.
I was so proud of myself because I'd gotten off those things. One of the medications I took was Deluxetine, and slowly, gradually got off of it. Like, yes, I did it, and then I went into my pain care physician, and I stressed I do not want to start taking opioids because an addictive personality, and I would get hooked on them, and I don't want that. So they have a medication. It is labeled as an opioid, but it's used to help people actually get off of these drugs. So it's like methadone,
Mhm.
and but off label, it's used for pain. So like,
Mhm.
sweet, I took it. It's working. It's doing what it's supposed to do. It's like a miracle for me. Although I still have my times of worse pain. But they said, you need to take this other medication with it. It will help. And they whatever they say, you know, this does this, this does that, blah, 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 blah. It was Deluxetine. So I'm on it again. Like,
after you'd worked so hard. Oh, how, yeah. It is a challenge because chronic pain is real and it's valid, and absolutely at a certain point, well, I'm going to speak from my own experience. At a certain point, needing something for pain is balancing that need with that. For me, sometimes my physical pain, and I have had a substantial amount of back pain over a number of years. But a lot of my thoughts of self-harm came when my pain was so bad. And it's kind of finding that balance between needing to alleviate some of the pain, just because otherwise for me, I got to the point where I was going to self-harm because I just wanted it to end, versus how do you find that balance? And it is a struggle. It is a tightrope balancing act.
I feel like I'm turning this into my therapy session, but
Go for it. Talk. I'm all about it. I'm enjoying this conversation.
Well, I don't know how many people understand this, but the pain also will bring back depression. It brings on anxiety. Not only am I feeling depressed because I hurt, but you know, when I can't do anything and I have to rely on my family, and mostly my wife, she's an angel. I don't know how she puts up with me, but she does. That brings more depression because I feel bad that she's having to take care of me. I feel bad because I feel less of a man because I can't get out and do the physical things I used to be able to do. Just one emotion after another. I'm like you. I'll get to that point where I feel like I should just end it all. It's hard to change that mindset, but you know, this is an outlet for me doing the show.
That's great.
Having people like you on that I can talk about these things and all the different methods that y'all use to relieve that depression and anxiety. It helps. It really does. And I stress very, very deeply, if you're watching this and you're going through anything similar, get help. Find you someone you can talk to, find you a therapist. If you need the medication, you know, I totally get it. Find someone like Angie here that has all these ways of relieving stress. I mean, anything you can. Do not hurt yourself. I've gone through it so many times. I mean, my father overdosed, my brother hung himself, my best friend electrocuted himself on purpose.
Wow.
And it's devastating. My brother, it's been 22 years since he's passed, and I still cry about it. I always thought of us, you know, growing old together and sitting on the front porch and complaining about everything.
Yes, yeah.
Get off my lawn, kid. Stuff, you know. And I'll never experience it. So that's more depression. And I just don't do that to your family. Don't. It's not worth it. Get help.
And there are so many resources. In fact, I'm feeling a little emotional right now. Because I can relate. One of the things, and this sounds silly, but one of the things I do when I'm really feeling alone and like I have no help is I go on TikTok or Instagram and look for videos of people talking about being trauma survivors, or just to hear someone else say, you know, I hear you. Yes, your experience is a similar experience. We didn't have that when we were kids. Like, we didn't have where you could go and be anonymous and just look at even a social media video of somebody saying, I've experienced trauma. I, you know, hurt. I wanted to commit self-harm and I didn't. This is what I did. Can, for me at least, I still do that. In fact, I did that yesterday when I was really struggling with something, is that I went and found people who who were giving messages that were similar to what I was experiencing. So I didn't have to feel so alone. We didn't have that when we were kids. And so there are resources, even if you don't feel comfortable reaching out, to actually talk about your problems with someone. If you're not at that point yet, there are a multitude of creators on social media who are talking about being a trauma survivor, or feeling lonely, or feeling depressed or suicidal, and options instead of committing the self-harm.
If you're watching this or you're listening to this, I may not know you personally, but I care about you. That's why I do this. If you want to reach out to me, my email is in the description. You message me, or you can get a hold of me on social media. Get a hold of me.
Message me. Yeah, message me. I'm absolutely, the loneliness that I experienced growing up, I don't want others to experience. So like you, I message me. I'm here. So I agree.
Gosh, how many hours did I spend by myself in my room, just feeling alone, like I had no place on this earth. I had no place in society. And lo and behold, here I am doing this.
Which is amazing, by the way. Thank you for giving people something to listen to, some hope. I thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That really helps. I get down sometimes too. I need help as well. We're all in this boat together. Somebody will talk to you and say, reach out to one of us. Go back and watch my other videos. Somebody in there might be able to help you. You can relate to them better. Just don't give up. So I don't want to get emotional. I'm feeling it.
Well, I was going to say, one of the things that I work with people on is to, when they're feeling that way, is to peel back, what is the negative belief that you have about yourself? So like for me, when I would get really suicidal, my belief is I'm not worthy. I don't deserve to live. I have no value. And so finding something that maybe contradicts that. So when I start to believe that I have no value, I think, oh, well, my dog depends on me. So I do have value because my dog is dependent on me. My dog loves me. And so, maybe looking like and it's incredibly challenging. I understand that when you're suicidal, you don't want to look and explore like those deep, heavy, painful things. I get that. And having been through many times in my life where I have been suicidal, that is one of the things that has helped me, is to think, okay, no, wait, my dog is dependent on me, or my dog loves me, or one person smiled at me today, so maybe I'm not worthless. And so looking for maybe an indication that belief, well, I'm not discounting your feelings, but that belief might be a little bit faulty, or, there might be an underlying reason that it's not true. And so looking for something. There were times where, one of the only things that I could look at is, so, some random stranger smiled at me at the grocery store today, so maybe I'm not worthless. And then my negative self-talk would come in. Well, they don't know you. They don't know anything about you. And, but they smiled at me, so just keep coming back to whatever it is that maybe gives you that spark of hope.
And if I can suggest something to you folks out there that have a strong personality, when you're at the grocery store, and it may be a little inconvenient. I hate those little self-service things, I will spend that extra time in the line just so I can talk to the cashier or the person that's bagging the groceries, joke around with them, make them smile. And that could be the difference. Go out and volunteer. I mean, gosh, there's the animal shelters, there's the old folks homes, and all these different places you can go to. If you can share your time and you see people that are going through something pretty bad, sometimes that'll take your mind away from your own problems, because you're like, oh, I need to help this person. They're going through something. There's all kinds of things you can do. And believe me, I've used every excuse in the book to end it all. But I feel like God has me here for a purpose. I'm still alive. I've overdosed a couple of times, and luckily somebody found me, got me to the hospital. But if they hadn't, I wouldn't be here.
Mhm.
I've had that pistol to my head. I actually shot myself in the chest.
Wow.
And, yeah, I don't want people to go through that. I don't. I know how you feel, and I'm just gonna say, you are worth it, no matter what that those things in your head tell you. You're worth it.
Mhm.
You may be doing a podcast one day, helping other people.
There's a big, when I was inpatient at the psychiatric hospital, I learned about the Semicolon Project. Have you heard of the Semicolon Project?
No.
So it's a mental health movement where the idea is that suicide can be a semicolon. So it doesn't have to be a period at the end of the sentence, like it doesn't have to be final, but suicidal thoughts can change the whole rest of the sentence. So a semicolon in writing is used to kind of combine two thoughts into the same sentence. And
Mhm.
so the semicolon indicates like the first part of your life that is the suicidal, the pain, the trauma, and then there comes the semicolon, and then a whole nother part of your sentence, your life can be joined together after finding the relief, the help from whatever resource. So it's suicidal thoughts and suicidal actions can be a semicolon, don't have to be an end stop to the sentence of your life.
I tell you that you hear people tell you this stuff, and you're still thinking in your head, no, it's not going to work for me. Believe me, I know every aspect of it. I do. But I'm telling you, please listen. Please get some help. I'm going to say that over and over and over again, just because I want you here. Talk to me. And,
I'm going to say that getting help is one of the hardest things you're ever going to do in your life. It was checking myself into the inpatient unit.
Mhm.
I really wanted to be dead rather than do that. It was, I did not want to do it. And being there, for the first few days, even though I voluntarily went in, I was not, put in there against my will. It was my own choice. I had a bad attitude. I wasn't entirely on board with the program. I was still resistant to it.
Yeah.
And once I made that decision to fully commit to healing and to working through that pain, much as it sucked, it really did change how my life went from there. It didn't stop me from feeling suicidal. I still have struggled with suicidal thoughts and with pain and with sorrow, yet it gave me tools and resources and just a glimmer of hope, a glimmer of hope to go in those times when it was incredibly challenging. So it's the hardest thing that you're ever going to do. It also is the best thing I've ever done in my life, is checking myself in to an inpatient unit.
I had a guest on, and we talked about the same subject, and the subject of suicide, or the word came up quite a bit, and substance abuse, that kind of thing. And you know that when you talk about these things, YouTube will restrict your video. They will demonetize you. Yeah. But I'm still going to do it. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we have to share this out. We have to push it out. YouTube's not going to do it. I don't know why. This is beneficial to so many people, and don't let this discourage you. I'm still going to post them. I'm still going to do these kind of shows. But when you're what they call shadow banned, we have to rely on ourselves to get this word out. So please share this. I'm not just saying it to get the views. We need to get the word out. I know it sounds selfish, but there's a reason. I say somebody out there is going to want to hear this, or they need to hear this. Angie, do you have a website?
I do. It's angieberrettmovement.com. And I spell my last name. So it's Angie, Angie, Berrett, Berrett. We spell it a little funny. So it's angieberrettmovement.com.
And what all social media sites are you on?
I'm on all of them,
Okay.
although I'm more active on Facebook, most active on Instagram. Although Angie Berrett Movement is what my name is, or my handle is on all social media. However, you can get there from my website. And if you do go to my website, I have a free download. It's a short 5-minute, less than 5-minute movement sequence when you feel like you're overwhelmed and you're going to lose your cool and you just need something to do. So it's quick, it's fun, it's play, and it gives a release for that buildup of energy on my website. So that'll, for anybody that needs it, there is that resource there.
Do you do consultations so people can decide if that's what they want to do?
I do free consultations. You can sign up through my website. I offer group coaching. So a lot of times people do want the support of a group. So I offer group coaching, and some people don't feel comfortable working through some of their stuff with others. And so I also offer individual coaching, but I do offer a free consultation. If you have any questions, please reach out to me, sign up. Send me a message, we can get you scheduled, because for me, play and movement, I still am doing therapy, still have done therapy. It just has been that release of the energy so that that I'm able to sit and heal a little bit easier.
And how long are the sessions?
Generally an hour.
An hour. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we can all be kind of goofy for about an hour. It's let your child part of you come out, you know?
I have a lot of videos on Instagram that are short little clips of the movements that I do. Like I said, I imitate a lot of animals. I want people to have resources because trauma therapy is expensive, especially in today's economy. It can be incredibly challenging to pay for a coach, especially for trauma survivors or people who are struggling. Trauma therapy is expensive. Therapy in general is expensive. So I do have a lot of little short Instagram reels of some movements that you can try depending on what mood you're in or what you're struggling with, as free resources out there as well.
Now, do you have a YouTube channel?
I do. I'm not as active on YouTube. I keep thinking that I need to get more active on that. But I do have a YouTube channel, and I do have my YouTube channel is more traditional yoga. Ever since my traditional yoga teaching has evolved into this intuitive movement, I have not been as active on YouTube.
We're going to light a fire under you.
I know. I really, I do want to get more active on YouTube. So y'all are my witnesses that I'm going to become more active on YouTube, because I do want people to have resources out there, because healing is, therapy, healing modalities are expensive. And so I do want people to have access to fun and play. And that's what I offer, is I offer an alternative to the heaviness of therapy and inpatient, and it still is healing. And it's with my nursing background, it's scientifically based. And so there's a whole lot that a benefit that comes from it.
Yeah, we all need to smile. We all need to laugh, be goofy for a little while, and just play, have a good time.
We're born knowing how to play. That's one of the things, is that we actually come out as brand newborns with our brains already pre-wired with play. And as we become adults, we lose our connection to that ability to play. However, our brain is still wired for that, which is why play is so powerful in healing. It's tapping into that part of our brain that we are literally born with, to heal, to form new pathways. Think of how kids learn. They learn through play. And that's a way that we as grownups can heal and learn and form new patterns in a way that is fun.
Most of my learning I did as a kid outside of school was Sesame Street, Electric Company, and Mr. Rogers. It was fun.
It was fun, yeah. And so healing can have that element of play and fun. It doesn't have to be heavy all the time.
And I'm gonna say something, it's gonna sound funny, but be careful when you look up yoga on YouTube, because Some of them were not clothed when they were doing their
Oh,
yoga.
yeah.
How does that get on YouTube?
And we can't talk about unaliving yourself, but they can be naked. The other thing I'm going to say is if you do look up yoga on YouTube, look up trauma-informed yoga, because there is a difference in teaching trauma-informed yoga, because it is much more based on learning how to tap into your body, not just traditional yoga can be very structured and regimented, and that can create more trauma for people, especially if you are a trauma survivor. So I would definitely recommend trauma-informed yoga.
Thank you, Angie. I appreciate your time. Really do. This was fun.
Kyle, thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed it talking with you. It's always so nice to talk to other people who, although I wish you didn't have to understand, it's nice to know that other people do understand.
Yeah.
So I appreciate what you're doing and getting the word out.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's too many folks that have gone through that, and we need to change that. It's going to take reaching the heart, But thank you again. Go to her website, look her up on social media. I will be putting those links in the description to make it easy for you. And until the next one, everyone, first, let me say, those of you that have stopped by and this is your first time, I appreciate that. I hope you'll come back. Spread that word. Subscribe if you would, please. For my regulars out there, thank you for that support. It's you allow me to do this. And until the next time, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network